did not want nothing to do with being a pastor.
Completely
We're
reasonable.
asking for a utopia church, which is basically gonna be impossible because there's gonna
It's like I'm sorry.
No.
Real quick.
we might need a step pastor over here just in case him and Justin start. Welcome to the Common Podcast, where we speak upon common sense and realize it really isn't that common. All right, guys. So before I get the honor to introduce today's guest, which I'm extremely excited for a multitude of reasons. One being that this man has been there for me in the last couple of years, specifically through probably the biggest process of my life, marriage, just kind of coming out of a dark place. We'll get into all of that in a bit here. But got my co-host here, Justin.
What's up, guys?
And let's just dive right into it.
Let's go.
How you doing?
Awesome. Amazing, as we say.
Amazing. So I have the honor today to introduce Pastor Steven, which is my pastor in particular. So my pastor. And what we want to kind of talk about today is life as a pastor, right? We'll take it all the way back to the very beginning. Life as a pastor's son.
All right.
How was that like? Were you kind of looked out as an outcast? Was that an easy process? Was that a hard process?
Well, I can say that it's been a journey, but yeah. So I mean, all my life, basically since I was born, I grew up in the pews of the church. Thankfully, when I was born, my father says that it's when he actually came to Christ or came to know, the ministry and where it came to change his life. So when I was born, he says, when I look at you, I look at how God dealt with me and how he changed my life. So every time I look at you, it's that turning point, that shift in his life or his ministry. So I had the blessed opportunity to now say, it is, as you could say, a blessing in disguise.
For sure.
Although you may not see it that way when you're growing up. Mm-hmm. As a young kid, obviously, you want to experiment, you want to do other things that the other kids are doing, and
quote unquote normal.
Right. And kind of when you have that tag in your life, or as the pastor's kids, the PKs, growing up, it was a sense of, I had to be the perfect kid.
Yeah, spotlight's on you.
Right. Exactly.
But you're not the only child.
So no. So I'm a family of 6, three girls, 3 boys. They were the Christian Brady bunch, as we so called.
And so you said your dad, when you were born, that was kind of like when his ministry started. You're not the oldest either, right?
No. So the oldest is my older sister, Marissa, which, God has taken us in different processes in our life. And now she's in Washington State, and she's also pastoring, her and her husband. And my older brother, he's now living in California, and then it's myself, and then it's my other younger sister, which now she's also pastoring in Sumas, Washington, with her husband. And then my younger sister, Myra, she's also in California, also in the ministry. So it's kind of like we all tied into that direction. And then my younger brother as well.
So real quick. So okay. So there's a stereotype that I've heard since I was a kid, that the pastor's kid is like the kid to watch out for because he's like going to be the most terrible kid. Did any one of your siblings or yourself fit into that category?
But I
just
think
when I say terrible kid, like the one who's straight, the black sheep, or like
we're straight up. We're all straight up the black sheep.
Okay. Well, that's just a question. Okay.
But I think that pastors' kids are only looked upon as the black sheep because they're held up to such a high standard.
Sure.
That's what I think. And I think that doesn't only apply to the pastor's kid. that applies to a lot of the people involved into the church, deeply involved in the church.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
Because, and I'll explain a little bit more what I mean, but if you want to chime in a little bit on that, on what you meant by like we're all kind of like the black sheep.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of has to do with culture, the way we were brought up. Obviously it's evolved. Christianity. Whether you're whatever background of denomination. Whether you're Christian, Pentecostal, Apostolic. I tend to say I'm an apostolic Christian because those are my roots.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw. But I'm now in that bridge, that gap between old school, new school,
which is what I told you.
Yeah,
I told you before, which he's so passionate
which is
about.
bringing up a million questions for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if not,
So
we'll,
excited.
Because
All right.
that's what he was excited about. Is that like, we'll get there. But the cultural shift that you are trying to accomplish, because you do recognize that you're in a time where it's like, it's the old traditional, and then there's the new generation. Back to the black sheep thing. What do you mean about that? Like we're all the black sheep?
Well, I mean, we're not none of us are perfect. You know?
For sure.
Paul said it. For more that I try to do good, the more good I try to do, the more wrong I'm doing. Straight up. Because that's just reality.
Sure.
I speak to a lot of people. I have an audience of a lot of people, and daily, I'm mentoring, counseling people, and whether it's in their relationships, in their marriage, or in life itself, they're single, divorced. This morning, I reached out to a friend of mine that, he's recently went through a divorce, and he was telling me, man, it just came to be that, and I'm sure Roger knows this because I'm his pastor, but sometimes I'll reach out and I say, hey, I'm thinking about you, just because that's the way God kind of shows me, like, hey, reach out to this person.
Yeah.
So I hadn't spoke to him, but he was like, man, you know what? I actually have the message right here. He's like, you called me like right when I needed to hear these specific words. So I was just like, I don't know. It's just, that's the way now I've evolved in my upbringing.
Yeah.
So the black sheep is we're not perfect. We're not perfect, but that doesn't mean you don't strive for perfection.
Yeah.
Our experiences as we grow are going to make us better.
For sure. So like our goal should not to be perfect, to be Jesus, but to strive to be like him. Right. But so do you think that the black sheep thing is because there is like a higher standard for y'all?
For a pastor.
I think that's true, because something that you would do as a pastor's kid will look frowned upon and if somebody else did that, it probably wouldn't, like, it'll be like, that's no big deal.
Like it's a normal teenager doing normal teenager
things. And people won't think that person's a bad kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But as opposed to like if a pastor's kid were to do it, that is like, really? Like, isn't your dad a pastor? Like,
right. So that was, speaking just what you kind of like brought me deja vu right now, like, because that would happen to me in middle school. Like my teachers were like, oh, and you're the pastor's kid, and your parents are pastors.
Your teacher would do
that.
that.
My teacher would say that. So it's like,
She sounds fun.
she loved me. She loved me. Hey, but that was just, it's that, I think there's a danger, because thank God my upbringing, what I went through, I learned through it, but it can also, like, because of culture, because of tradition, it can also affect you. Not everybody's fortunate. So even me as a black sheep, or anybody, any PK out there that that's been through it, not all PKs have made it.
Right.
Some PKs have gone turned off about it.
Yeah.
Just about church, just about because of the their upbringing, their things they got criticized for, and that really just destroyed them. It didn't help them. It didn't lift them up. It in that sense it was dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay. So being in that aspect of obviously being a pastor's kid, from what I understand, you had a much higher expectation to grow up and have a higher standard of being someone different than just a normal person. Which at the same time, you're a human being, So you're a black sheep naturally because
But
nobody's perfect.
I think a lot in my upbringing was culture,
Okay.
tradition, right? But it's because it's like that was just how we were brought up. You can't do that's a sin. You're going to hell. Like, you do that.
Yeah.
You're straight up the devil. You're going to hell.
Yeah.
Do you think that it wasn't so bad for you, particularly because that is all you knew, or because like in your family circle, like for the most part, everyone's driven, like God driven, like everyone in your family knows God is real,
Right.
right? So do you think having that helped you out a little bit, or you?
Right. I think it molded me. Obviously, it's going to mold everybody different. And because we're all assigned to a different task here on earth. I mean, that's truly what I believe. Your calling, his calling, my calling, it's distinguished by character. And that's how God builds character in us. It's through our upbringing. It's through the schooling. So every experience, every problem, everything we witnessed, everything we went through, even talking about the dark stuff, everything we've gone through that God has allowed for us to go through that's part of gaining wisdom. Like that's part of him creating character in like bringing out your personality and what God has designed for you.
Gotcha. I'm going to dig a little deeper for a second. So you, I guess going back to my question earlier, you did have some sort of expectation to, no regular teacher was going to tell another kid like, well, you know what, your last name is this, so I can't believe you're acting this way. Except for you were a pastor's kid,
Right.
and so they had some
Right,
sort
it
of
was-
leverage against you. So you did have some sort of different expectation than a normal kid.
And that's exactly why I would get angry.
right.
Yeah.
That was my
so
frustration.
my question is did you grow up wanting to be a pastor despite like all of those different sort of things going on, or did you like have a different career choice and then at some point in time did your mindset change? Like what led you to that point if there were so many challenges that were going against you?
Right. So great question.
Great, because I know some of the.
Roger already knows some of the story, right?
I dig deep, man. I want to know.
Yeah. So like let's open up, man. I'm gonna open up my heart, and
Go for it.
That's why I'm here, and I think that's why we're here. So great question. I did not want nothing to do with being a pastor.
Completely reasonable.
Completely, I didn't want to. I was satisfied. Obviously, I grew up in church. I loved serving at church. I became, and this might take us to something else, but I became common. I became common at church. So that's the common question. Right there. But like it was like, okay, well, I know how to do church. I lived it all my life. I seen it. I seen the good, the bad, the ins, the outs. Like I get it, but I do not want to be pastor. So it wasn't until 2014, obviously, that I was just a musician. I was just a minister, just serving at the church, serving whatever I could do. Whatever area I could serve at church. I was recently married. I want to say I had maybe 4 or 5 years. About 4 or 5 years into my marriage. Don't quote me on that, but 2014, where tragedy struck.
Okay.
My son was 3 years and 3 months. I had an older daughter, Cassidy, and she was about 4 years old. And my son, Steven Elion, was 3 years and 3 months. So I went through a life-changing event. Tragedy struck my life from one day to the next. It was a Thursday night, got out of church, went to my father's house. We went to go eat, we went to fellowship. We went, after
Normal night.
Yeah, normal night. After that, tragedy struck my life. Me and my wife were going home. My wife buckles my son, and my daughter gets her in the truck. We go off home, and on the way home here in the city of Los Fresnos, my son unbuckled himself and opened the door of the truck. and I ran over my son. So that was obviously a night that will change you for the rest of your life. So I ran over my son, and I know this is hard. This is hard for me. It always is, but I've learned to use it now in a positive way to impact others. But I want to share this so you can understand what took me to that shift.
Yeah. No.
What took me. So obviously a life-changing event. That's really where I like my heart started leaning on God truly.
I think you had to. Honestly, like that is something that really gravitated me towards this man here, is that he mentored me in the beginning of my hardship growing up into as an adult, and in the first couple of visits he opened up to me about this, and man, oof, it hit me.
Yeah.
And this will make or break somebody, honestly. This event and the fact that he turned it, and not only was he, because I'm pretty sure it's an ongoing overcoming process even to this day.
Correct.
But the fact that he turned that and in one day decided, and you use this, I'm married to the ministry now, and he decided that he was going to become a pastor. I was like, man, if this guy can overcome this, it literally, everything that I'm going through right now, it made it this small.
Minuscule, yeah.
It made it this small. Yeah. So that's why I admired him so much. And when he speaks, I can feel it. It's, I can feel the power because of everything that he's gone through.
Right. And just speaking about that, like, that's something you guys, we're all going to learn. It's a process. Like, because I would always question God, why did you allow this to happen to me? Like, I don't deserve it. Like, or yeah. I mean, I'm trying to live right, why do you allow these things to happen? But we are never going to be able to comprehend or understand God at his fullest of what he's doing or how he's working or why he's doing it. One thing I truly have learned is that he knows exactly what he's doing. Even now that I speak to people, or even now, it's just that, you cannot see, your words will not impact a lot of people unless you really go through it, bro.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I really, really want to ask a very challenging question, just because, like, most people, I shouldn't say most. That's just some people would not immediately go to God. In fact, whether they believed in him or not, they would actually say, God, why did you let this happen?
So, Pastor, finish that story that night.
Yeah, so what shifted you to say, instead of saying, God, why did you let this happen? Or, because a lot of people were like, well, if there is a God, why does he let things like this happen? What shifted you into, but like, I understand that you grew up in a church, but I think that there has to be some sort of, like, Holy Spirit inside of you to say, hey, you know what? This has nothing to do with God's not evil, but right. Here's why that this is the direction that I need to go in. So what led you to go into that direction?
So Pastor, I think this will lead into answering his question. Kind of finish off. What did you do immediately after the incident? Because this would say a lot about your character.
So it's, look, you obviously, there are decisions you make. Roger talked about that. Like, you make a decision, and my decision was like, okay, God, if you're not inside of me, like, if you're not living inside of me, like, if you're not taking over my life, like, I am not going to make it. Like, I am going to go crazy. And not that did not tend to happen, because it wasn't easy. The process, the journey, bro, I call it the journey.
Yeah.
It's the journey you're going to have to venture in. The journey is different for each and every one of us. It's different. It's going to be different. But I accepted the journey, saying, okay, God, if I'm going to go through this and I'm not dying, and, I'm not going to be able to see my son again, then what am I going to do to be able to see him again? So that's what led me. Mm-hmm. That's what drives me is that I need to get to where he's at if I want to see him again. David said it. David suffered loss, and King David, in the Bible, he made a lot of mistakes. He was a sinner just like us, and although God raised him and he put him in high places, he was still imperfect, and he was still a sinner, and because of consequence, because of that, he also lost a son. But he said, "Hey, I understand now. He can't come to me, but I can go to him." So I made a decision that night. I said, "You know what, God, if you're not inside of me, then I'm not going to be able to." I was just talking to a friend of mine on Sunday because he's going through dialysis. And he's telling me, "Pastor, I don't know, like," he's like, "It's gonna be hard. It's either I get a transplant, I have all these options, but it's like gonna be forever for the rest of my life." And we were literally in the back of my house, and I remember like it was this Resurrection Sunday, and he had never been in my house, and he was like, "Man, look, you're right next to the railroad tracks." I said, "Yeah, I got a testimony for that." Because, and then later on I told him, I said, "Look, these are the tracks where I give my testimony. These were the tracks where are 3 times I wanted to lay down on those tracks so that the train could just take my life." And that's just straight up truth, So
I heard that one before.
like, that's process. That's the journey. Now, why, when I laid down on those tracks, why didn't the train pass? Because God didn't allow it. God didn't want it. Even though I wanted to die many times, even though I wanted to lose my mind, God sustained it. And that's my testimony. That's my story. It's not going to be the same for everybody. But we all gotta find that channel. I have every day I just get different people calling me, I need this, just relationships, broken heart. "Pastor, I can't get through this divorce. I can't get through this, this heartbreak." And it's like, I know that I've been molded for this time. Yeah. So going back to the question, what made you become pastor, or why did you choose this? Well, it was because that's really what God was preparing me to eventually do. And even though at the time I was a plant operations manager, I was already managing, I was already dealing with people, employees and stuff like that.
Making good money.
Yeah, making good money, having let's say a good career, having a good career. Now, did I do it because of money? No. Heck no.
We talked about that not so long ago because we're talking a little bit about business and about, where I want to go in the future. And he was just like, he talked about you have to love it, right? Like you have to have a passion for it, because he said, if I was in pastoring for the money, this is not, or, if I was in this business for the business, this is not the route I would have taken. But I'm so passionate about the souls. I'm so passionate about
because not every pastor has a mega church. Not every pastor is called for a bigger city. We're in the town. We're in Los Fresnos.
We're in the valley.
Yeah, we're in the valley. But I love it. I love the people. I love the community. I grew up here, and this is where God has me now. Now, is it somewhere I'm gonna be here forever? I don't know. I don't know, but I've learned that wherever God has me right now, I'm gonna serve at it as if I was already where I want to be.
Well, that was fairly intense. Just like first of all, thank you for being willing to share that. Because I had a list of follow-up questions, but now I don't. That was good. So I if anything, I want to say that I personally believe in the power of testimony. Whether someone is a believer or not, I think someone's story is motivational, because at least for someone who is not a Christ believer watching right now, I think that they can grab that story and be like, "Hey, I can overcome this in some way, shape, or form." So first of all, thank you very, very much for sharing that. I applaud you for working through that and getting through that. It's got to be it's got to be tough even to this day. So
Of course, but we learn like it's you learn like it's a growing process. It's a painful process.
Yeah.
You don't stop. The tears will come. But it makes you stronger. It literally does, because the Apostle Paul said, although I feel weak, it's in our weaknesses where God, where He strengthens us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in our weaknesses where He is strengthened. His power, His grace, His love. It's where it's strengthened, and people see it in us. People will feel it in us, but because it's raw, it's real. It's not artificial. It's not fake, because you're actually living it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I immediately find your story completely motivational, because now, like you've said, I feel like I have a lot going on in my life right now. I'm just going to wrap this sentence up real quick. But you've immediately put me in perspective of like, hey, you know what? Things can not only just always get worse, but there's always a mindset that anything and everything could always just get better. Yeah. And there's always a way to move forward. Mm-hmm. So,
it goes, I had a podcast about this not too long ago. It might've been the last podcast or 2 podcasts ago. Where I talk about somebody out there has it worse than you just had it.
Correct. And even to the day, like I live by that. Even that phrase till the day. It's like, and even me, like I'm still not exempt from what could happen or could go wrong.
Yeah.
Just because I already lost, something so precious, and it's torn me up inside, does not mean I will not go through something else.
Right.
But are you willing to endure that again for the cause?
Yeah.
Because your story only gets better.
Yeah.
It's that fine wine, man.
Yeah.
It only gets better with age.
For sure.
Okay, so going back to the night, because this is what I find super inspiring as well, is you didn't go directly to the hospital when this thing happened. Right. And that kind of goes back to like where you said in the beginning, culture, right? Is that for me defines the faith that you had.
Right.
Immediately, because I don't know if I like in that position, I don't know if like thinking right now, I don't know if I'd do that immediately.
Wait. So what?
Okay.
What?
So let's back up. So obviously I was talking about the accident, right? My son's tragic accident. I ran over my son. In that moment, when that happened, I froze. The lights of the truck come. Obviously, I stop. I feel obviously before that, I feel the wheels of the truck go over my son. So I was literally in shock. I was in shock. My wife was the one that screamed his name and the lights of it. So I literally, like, I couldn't move. I just like I was in complete shock. My wife was the one that got out of the truck, and she ran in the middle of the street to pick up my son, and my son was bleeding out. So in that moment, the only thing I could think of, obviously I called 911, but the only thing I could think about was like, hey, I need to go back to my father's house, and we need to pray for a miracle. Like literally in the moment, and I literally had the dispatcher on the phone, like going crazy, and like we were going back to my father's house because we had just left. It had been like maybe 5 minutes. Like, so when I go back, like literally my parents, my father, my grandmother, they're all sitting in the sofa. We had just left. They were still there sitting, already getting ready to go to sleep. And obviously when we rush in there, it's chaos, it's I'm sure, they can all testify for their story or what happened, but, I'm sure they were in shock as well. And we just started, I just remember my wife giving my son to my father. My father had a white undershirt on, and then his shirt just literally just started getting all soaked in blood red. And we were just screaming, shouting for God, for a miracle. At the same time, police are getting here, ambulances here, neighbors are outside the house. It's chaotic. And then after that, we're just following the ambulance in a cop car, and me and my wife are just screaming to God, have mercy, have mercy. Like, and I remember getting out of I remember getting to the hospital, and Judge Daniels, which that night he's a known judge here locally, he knows the family, and obviously he knew who I was, and he just kind of looked at me straight in the eye. He said, once they were bringing my son out of the hospital, out of the ambulance, going into the hospital, the emergency room, he looks at me and he says, "Son, it doesn't look good." So when he says that, I kind of like, my spirit knew what was about to happen. So I literally I threw myself to the ground. Face down. I didn't care who was there or what. And I just started shouting to God. But it wasn't anger. It wasn't, why is this happening? I just started pounding the floor. And I said, God, I'm going to glorify you. I'm going to worship you. But don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. And I just kept pounding the floor. Obviously, man, just crying out, just pouring out I literally gave myself. So I always say this. Yes, there's a time we know God, right? Or we say, oh, I live for God. And you know what? I go to church. I know God. But there's a time where you really give your heart to him. Like where you genuinely and I think we all have to encounter that at some point. It's not going to happen in the same time for everyone, but there will come a day where you're just, that he's going to have to take control because you cannot do it. And that's the way I felt. I felt so small that I could not give life. When you find that you don't have that power, trust me, you're going to seek to find it. Because you understand you can't make him breathe. You can't bring the blood back into his body. You cannot do that. You have no power over that. So you feel so small.
Yeah.
You're nothing. And that's literally what we are without God. So I understood that. I lived it. And till the day, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's good. It's powerful, right? Yeah. Give me chills again.
I'm still needing to mentally process, but yeah, that's very intense. Very intense. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I always give the advice to people that are non-believers that ask me, why do you believe, or they kind of question it, or why should I believe? I always give them one advice. I believe that you should seek for God before he seeks for you, because then it will not be in your terms. Because then if you're seeking for God, right? If you're seeking for God, you're already in good practice. So if you're in good practice, it's kind of like the law of attraction. You're already kind of like, you're trying to live a good lifestyle. So you start to attract those things. So you start to get in the, things that are meant to be bad, right? More like, obviously this isn't always the case, but it'll more than likely be less as bad as if you were living in a worldly life in a bad environment and whatnot. Then you're going to be forced. I always tell everybody this. Right, you are going to be forced on your knees to God, and it's going to be worse. I always say that. Find him now seek God before he seeks you, because I think that it'll be not in your favor.
See, and I think what the good thing about Christianity is I think that I say, okay, let me rewind that statement. Just the good thing about me following Jesus Christ, I could say that. I think what's good about the Jesus aspect is I feel like religion to me is more so like man searching for God, and Jesus turned that around and it turned into God searching for man. So I feel like whether you're in a good scenario or a bad scenario, I think God is constantly waiting for you to go to him, and he's seeking you. And so that's where the saying, or seek and you will find, knock and there will be an answer. Now, which brings in your point. If you're in a half empty type of person, if you're constantly only looking for that and seeking that, it's more than likely going to answer the door. Not to say that's going to be for most people, or in your situation, I don't think that you were necessarily a half empty type of person, but I think that with just normal situations aside from freak accidents, I think that people tend to lean one way or another of like, well, if I just do these things and kind of just go by these list of rules, you know, then it'll be okay. But it to me, it's all about perspective and mindset and what you're actually seeking for and where your heart set is for. Which kind of leads me into my next point. And I don't know how to bring this out in a correct way, especially following up this conversation. But earlier we mentioned that you were trying to shift from preaching at the church that you are now and shifting into maybe a different mindset or a different perspective.
Well, it's going to be the same church, right?
Right.
Okay,
It's going to be the church. Just
So
like
what's your
culture.
approach? Okay, so then what's your approach in shifting to preaching to a different culture?
Right. Well, it's understanding where we're at. You know, understanding what times we're living in, understanding the generations that are coming up. Obviously, what's going on in the world.
Because the gospel's timeless.
Correct.
Right? There wasn't vehicles back, right, in when the Bible was wrote.
Right. You can
But
see what
it's
culture
still
changed.
but it's still relevant
Right.
to this day. But how do you kind of like grab the audience or teach the audience, rather spread the word now to the culture that we have now, as opposed to
Which is also like, I don't think that if you look through and read through the Bible, you see culture shifts and culture changes happen throughout the Bible. And I think that like now, like slavery was a norm.
Are you talking like Old Testament versus New Testament?
Yeah. So like slavery was a norm, but that's not something that you would preach upon to say that like it's okay. And there's some verses in the Bible that do say that it's okay. So like it's okay to shift, I think, with culture as long as you stay with the gospel and what actually happened.
So before you get into cultural change, because that is something that is one of your goals now as a pastor, let's rewind back, because I kind of want to have this as a timeline.
Correct.
So during, I don't know if this happened or if this was before or after, but you mentioned you wanted to be quote unquote like a rock star. We talked about it the other night, and not so much like a rock star, like all crazy rock star.
Yeah.
But you loved music, and you were in a band, and that was
Correct.
something that you were passionate about.
Right. So I'm by far one of my trades is being a musician. You know, like that's a gift God gave me. So obviously when I was younger, like that's one of my passions. Till the day it still is. It's part of my life because I love music. So obviously I had ambitions, I had goals, I had dreams. You know, I'm like one day, you know, I could be this. Hopefully one day I could be, you know, make a career out of it, maybe produce music, tour, which I did, you know, and I got to explore that, and that was something that I really wanted to do, but you know, God had something else, you know, in mind. So doesn't mean I'm not passionate about it anymore. It's just you know, I understand right now what I have to do, you know, my call or my task.
But to be fair, you do use it today. You use your gift in
Correct.
For the kingdom of God.
Correct. You're gonna use it. Obviously, you know, I got the calls. I got to see, you know, what the world had to offer me as well, you know, and it wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to have. You know, it wasn't the atmosphere I wanted to be around.
We talked about that the other day.
You know, so it's, you know, it's also making a decision. You know, I could have stayed in that atmosphere or chose, okay, you know what, you know, and you know, I have those conversations that still rise today, even with people asking me that are right now dealing with that right now, that are dealing with working a secular job or in a secular atmosphere, and they're trying to do life, you know, as being a Christian, and it hinders their life. You know, it can impact their life in a negative way. You know, and then now going through so much that we've been through this past year, COVID, all this, you know, change that has struck the world, you know, thankfully a lot of people have used that to kind of they can, you know, reevaluate their life and see where they're at. And a lot of people are saying, you know what, I need to get back to where, or I need to go back to church, or I need to get my life right. I need to, you know, set things right. And that's what I've been seeing lately from just a lot of people in all areas, you know, all generation types, whether you're old school, new school, I've been seeing that.
Good. Good. So then now you transition into, after the incident, you transition to, how does that process look? So it doesn't obviously happen overnight. You decide, okay, you don't decide that night, I want to be a pastor, right? When does that happen, and how does that process of you becoming a pastor?
So after that, for 3 days, in the days of the funeral of my son, this whole town was like, the church was packed out, people outside the doors, the city shut down. Like,
what year was this?
This was 2014.
2014.
Our graduation
September 25th. And then it was that week. It was a Thursday night, September 25th. Obviously the funeral was that weekend. But literally, like, it was just those three. I got to experience the peace that surpasses all understanding for those 3 days. It's kind of like God took me, he covered me. Like he strengthened me. I was on a high, like a spiritual high, I mean, it was from maybe drug addicts or other, people that deal with, addiction, so they can probably, relate. But that's like, it's a high I was in that just covered me. Like, I felt, that's really where I started to feel the love for people. Like, I started feeling like genuine love for people. Even people that had hurt me, even people that, I knew they really didn't care about me, or, it was just,
Yeah.
I felt that love towards souls, towards people. And after that, those 3 days, I was able to experience that bliss, that pure love.
Yep.
That's real, that's like, my father said this in a testimony. He said, I saw my grandson go up a ladder, experience heaven, having the opportunity to come back down, back to earth. And he said, it feels too good here. So he didn't want to come back.
That's good. Yes.
Yikes. Oh, just my brain is trying to.
So
Yeah. Thank you.
so the pastorship side, you get this calling from God, and your dad also has that calling for you, right, to take over the church, and he has a calling of his own to go to California.
Correct.
So how does that transition work? And I want to dig deep into like the struggles. Does everybody in the church already see you as that leadership role, or is that something you had to develop?
I think it's building, obviously, in any type of leadership, in any type of position, you don't demand respect. You earn it. And it's through your walk, through your personality, your character. It's how you treat people. It's how you love on people. That's just me being real.
Respect goes unspoken. I talked about it on one of the podcasts.
Yeah, like it's so if you learn that, then you don't have to. Oh, I'm pastor, and I don't expect people to call me pastor. Like, if they're gonna call me pastor, it's because they want to, or they have that respect. If they want to, I'm not gonna demand it. Oh, like, you need to call me pastor.
Yeah, some people do feel that way. I'll talk to you off camera about an incident, but like, I'm pretty sure you even know what I'm talking about. Maybe not, but there is a time where like I call someone by their name. Yeah. You remember?
And they called you out and said, "No, call me pastor." Name.
No, not pastor, but something else. We'll talk about it off camera. I don't want to disrespect anybody here.
Okay.
But that was like, well, okay. But anyways, okay. So what were we talking? But did you ever feel the pressure of like, I need I need to gain some type of leadership status in this place, or was it very blissful?
I think the transition was smooth.
Okay.
The transition was smooth. I think because of my process,
Yeah.
because of people were able to witness it and see it beforehand. They like see that shift.
Yeah.
And they understood. It was kind of like, the way I see it is that even though they didn't go through it, it's kind of, they were still a part of it.
Very obvious that
Right. It was still
working inside you.
right.
Yeah.
And they also were a part of it.
Part of it too. Like,
Right.
Like, you know, you build a family.
Family.
You build a family, you know, you build a family. And that's the way it should be. Like kingdom, bro, like we're talking about just godly kingdom shit, bro. Like, it's like I tell people, man, if you don't forgive them, you know, we just had Passover, you know, or the, you know, communion on Sunday. I'm like, if you can't forgive your you know, your own brother, your sister, your neighbor, your friend, you know, like, how are we going to be in heaven? Like,
Right.
you know, like, just let's be real. Like, you know, we have to, you know, like we have to here on earth, you know. I tend to say this phrase, and I get it out of Dr. Miles Monroe, because after my process, that's really when I started reading. That's really when I started digging deep, because I wanted answers. You know, I wanted answers. Like, you know, it's a journey I'm going into. So I also wanted answers. I also wanted, you know, to know, hey, like, what am I gonna do the rest of my life? You know, and so
Dr. Miles Monroe's.
Yeah,
good.
Dr. Miles Monroe's a powerful teacher.
Very anointing.
Straight up kingdom. And then it was his story is crazy, because a couple months after my son's, he ended up dying in a plane crash. I'm sorry, going from one conference, speaking at a conference, going to another, and it was just tragic. His wife, his wife, and all his team, they died in that plane crash, and it was crazy, man. I was like, Lord, how do you? Like, I'm barely, you know, getting mentorship and like finding out, discovering. And why do you take? It's kind of like when, you know, when you see those people that pass away, they're like the good ones. It's like, why do you take the good ones? You know? Like, why do you allow that to happen? But anyways, so he says this. He's like, when you die, we ought to die empty.
Yeah.
Because he says this. He says the most richest places on earth are the cemeteries. Why?
Yeah.
Because all the gifts, the talents, the knowledge stayed in that grave. They were never projected. They were never given. They were never discovered.
Yeah. And so he says that he preaches every time he preaches as if it was his last.
Correct. So that, and like, I fell in love with that, because it was like, man, that's me, you know, like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to preach as this is my last day. I want to teach. I want to, like, if this is our last podcast, like, let's make it count, you know?
Yeah.
Like, let's make it count. And when you begin to live like that, like, it's like this. Okay, well, back then I was seeing like, yeah, it's half empty, right?
Yeah.
But now I see it, what? Half full.
Yeah.
Just what you were speaking about.
Right.
Like, it's learning how to see it like that. Okay, I'm no longer going to see it half empty. I'm going to see it half full. Like,
Right.
Yeah. I still have water.
Right.
Instead of I'm running out of water.
Right, exactly. Like, oh, I still got water. Oh, I got a drop left. That's all I need.
That's all I
Boom.
need. Yeah.
That's all I need. And that's literally how I live life.
I think that half full, half empty is a little bit overcooked, and people lose sight of the perspective. So I like to say I still have water versus I'm running out of water. How about
Exactly.
that? How about we change that?
And well, for me, I'm more of a realist. Just pour some more water into it. You know what I'm just saying? Like, you're running out. Okay, just pour some more.
Urchin,
Yeah.
Pastor.
Yeah,
Urchin.
urchin. Straight up. Yeah.
Straight up urchin.
That's for another day.
I haven't even. He asked me. He asked me about it because I called him an urchin. He's like, man, I felt offended. Like,
Yeah.
Well, no, okay. Let me do real quick story.
you're good.
So, I'm in the shower. I like to listen to podcasts in the shower. We have this little cup holder, so I have it in there, showering, and I had just told him that I wasn't going to be able to make it to that particular show the next day. So I was like,
Because you wanted more time to plan.
Yeah, I was like, man, I hope he's not upset, but I really like to have a full on conversation on what to expect for this show, just, to walk through. Correct. Just a little bit preparation so I can, have a mindset going into it. And he goes, man, you're you're an urchin shark. And I was like,
What
did he call me? What did he call me? And
Hold
then
hold up.
I remember I get out of the shower, I have the towel around me, and I slide open the door, and I go to my wife, I go, he just called me an urchin shark. And my wife goes, what does that mean? And I said, I don't know, but it doesn't sound good. So I was like, man, this is weird. So I messaged him and I'm like, I hope I didn't offend you. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, what? No, so we got to cover that basis. So it was okay now. But no, I have a few okay, so I have just like one more question. Just final.
Shoot.
Okay. So clearly your love for people has gotten you into the mindset that you need to shift culture to reach people outside of the church that you're already in. And even if you want to, continue preaching in the church that you're in right now.
Right.
What and how do you plan on doing that? And I have my own personal opinion, but I want to hear it from you because you've been doing this for so long, and I want to know, what is your mindset going into trying to preach to a completely different culture, because essentially, whether you kind of just barely get your feet wet or dive right in, you're gonna have to change a little bit.
Right. So for me is kind of like what I said in the beginning, is being that bridge. Can I be that bridge to bring them together?
Right.
And not that we're gonna disrespect the old tradition, the old thoughts, but we're going to honor, we're going to respect that. And then, but also so that our generations that are coming up, for example, my daughters,
you are going to have to break it down a little bit to be able to reach out to them, just because the culture shift has changed.
Because they're not going to understand. Like, literally, they're not going to get it. Like, to them, like, it's not like I was, the kudos to Blessed Up Barbershop, they did my beard today, also Danny Blends, they'll probably watch it, they'll probably support. I told them I was trying to get a shirt so I could represent them, but they're young, they're young.
I'm familiar with the owner,
right, with Mr. Chris Blanco as well, and just being entrepreneurs, trying to make it, and that's like literally, like, I know that's, I want to be able to reach them. I want to be able to also for them to connect, to find a connection, to know, hey, we can do church, we can do life in Christ, we can do it even with our own crazy, dreams. We can make it. I want to be that trailblazer. I want to be that person that can connect. Because I also have my little ones, I have my daughters that I know that I always say this, what church are they going to have when they're 21? What is church going to look like for them?
Yeah.
So you're just essentially trying to make the proper adjustments.
Right, exactly. So what is it, and are they going to have a church that's real? Are they going to have a church or, that's...
It's all going to be live or virtual reality.
Are they going to have,
right.
And just, are they gonna, because we need to retain obviously the word, the Bible, right? And I don't have we don't have specific Bibles, but it's in an app, or it's in an iPad. So what are they gonna have in the future? But it, the word of God says that his word will never go void. It will never change. It's everlasting. It's forever, it's eternal. So what kind of church am I gonna build, for them to be like, man, you know what? Daddy he grew up in that era but he still maintained that integrity.
Yeah.
Of what church should be. All right.
So let's kind of tie back into changing the culture, because I know, and you're not really being too vocal about it right now, but I know you have more in depth about culture change and about the religious how would you call it? Mindset, the religious mindset.
Okay, yeah, that's a very nice way to put that. Yeah. Okay, so I guess what
because I agree with you at some point, but then there's some points where I'm like, okay, that's kind of like, you know what I mean? I think Pastor would have great insight.
Sure.
And he won't completely be against you, but
Well, don't yell at me. No, okay. So I guess just the reason I have recently found a struggle with just simply going to church is because, to me, mindset going into church is supposed to be for fellowship and then hearing God's word, and coming all together as like for Christ. But I've witnessed and just experienced. I guess like this is so hard to put it, but church has become, especially I've been able to see it with the culture shift, has become more of a list of how to instead of just come to. Meaning, to me, religion and somewhat of Christianity, at least from what I've experienced, has become a list of rules or a list of like, if you really want to come to Christ, it's to me, it's no longer about, just simply the love of Christ. It's no longer simply about relationship. There's always well, here's what you need to do. Instead of just just like love Jesus and act like Jesus and followed in Jesus's footsteps. And so like, and when I go back to talking about the experience and situations that I've been in, I have, long story short, I went to a Christian college, and for so long, what held me back against coming to Christ was going to school with a bunch of Christians where I saw nothing but hypocrisy and nothing but, judgment upon others and just, I am better than you kind of situation because I'm religious and I know how to live and I know how to do this, where, that humility is out the door. And I wanted to talk to you about, do you think maybe that it's okay to say it's not about the list of rules? Because there's some churches that, and I'm going to be very bold in this statement, there's some churches that don't like listening to music, or that refuse to say because it's against the word of God, or won't particularly do this situation because it's against the word of God. And at the end of the day, to me, what I found in my own salvation was that it shouldn't have to do with any of the list of rules. It has to do with your walk with Jesus Christ, and are you trying to share that life with others and bring them closer to Jesus Christ? Because at the end of the day, if you have your own struggles, you have your own things, then okay, stay away from those. But at the end of the day, maybe it's okay to listen to music. You know what I'm saying?
So like, to make it very simple, kind of like,
because I did not.
I want to answer all the you just
answer it.
Give me all bunch of questions.
So if in order to come to this church, you have to do this and that, or like in order to follow God, you have to do this and that kind of set of rules, is what you're not a fan of.
So like if you
right.
Like, if that's the case, that church probably wouldn't have even let Jesus in himself if he came in rags. So, that's where my problem is like, okay, well, if Jesus was walking around with us today, would they have actually let him in that church? Because he didn't follow in the guidelines, even though he was going to be the son of Christ, or be the son of God.
I just think for everybody, it's going to be different in knowing how you really want to do church. Like, obviously, the word of God says that, obviously, you should know that it's not the building; it's
the people.
The people make the church. Mm-hmm. Like, we are the church,
right? Which
it's
makes
not
up the
a building,
right?
It's not the set of rules that make the church. Yes, is there rules? Of course, every church, every denomination is going to have a set of order because God is the one that brings order. So, are we going to go? I think it's finding the balance. Really, like, we have to find that balance.
Sure.
We have to find the balance and not go to extreme.
Sure.
Because, it's like you said, like, I mean, if Jesus were to walk in right now, like, you'd be like, snap. Like, he ain't going to look nothing like us. He ain't even going to probably talk. It's going to be totally different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the essence is the same. Like, God does not change.
Right.
So it's finding that balance. For me, it's finding that balance. Like, obviously, like, I know where I'm at. I know who I want to reach. And if you're going to want to reach a certain type of people, then, hey, you're going to have to go down to that level.
Right.
And if I want to reach these kind of people, I have to go up to that
Right.
Yeah.
standard. You know, so it's who you are. So now if you're a person like what are you called to be? So like let's say am I just a person that wants to go to church and sit in a pew and just hear the word of God? If that's you, then awesome. Like, okay, then just do that. But are you into leadership? Are you into I don't know, music, arts, what I don't know, your passions, what you want to do in the kingdom? Like what it to me it depends where you want to be.
Yeah.
Because some people are satisfied just
Going.
Yeah,
to, you know,
for sure. There's some people that I know that aren't even followers of Christ that go just to go to church because they like the positive, you know,
vibe
the
or whatever,
environment
yeah.
around them.
Yeah,
But
I just saw something like that. Where somebody went just because it was a safe. They felt safe in the environment.
Yeah. And so that's a very good part. I'm glad that like even church this day can let people feel like that. But I think what I'm asking is I think a little bit more of a detailed. I shouldn't have elaborated so much on the last question. But I'm saying what pushed me so far, and I want to hear your thoughts on. There's so many churches in all denominations. There's even been non-denominational churches that I've seen that have a required list. And to me, as a Christian, you should not have a requirement. Like if there's a certain attire, to me, this is just my own opinion. This is me not pushing anything out there. This is me just saying there should not be a specific attire. There should not be, well, you've done this before or you're currently doing this. No. As a Christ follower or someone who is not a Christ follower and just simply just interested in Christ, you should be allowed in the door. And I know that there are many churches out there because of their list of structure, and I understand that there's a balance. However, to me, I know for a fact that appearances or gossip or hypocrisy sometimes keeps people away from just even walking through the doors of a church. So I want to ask you, are you aware that maybe there are some things that should be changed because Christ is much more simple than that? Because when Christ said it is finished, he meant it is finished. So, or do you think that
I think when we want to know God, he will answer. So if we want to go to church for the right reasons and understand why we're doing it, it says the Holy Spirit will guide us to all truth and understanding. Right? So we have that. We have the Holy Spirit to guide us in those questions. Like, because I'm going to be real with you. If I go to Africa, I went to Africa last year, bro. Right when COVID peaked.
Yeah.
Like, totally different culture, totally different faith. Like you see crazy stuff. Like, just the hunger of people walking miles and miles to get to a service where they're literally in suits. Every single person, like over there, that's the culture. Like, you go downtown Nigeria, you go downtown Kenya, like it's suits and dresses, bro. Like, and it's hot, bro.
Yeah, sure.
That just culture is just like, but you know, you see so many things, bro. It's like God does not change. Their love for God, like, does not. You see the women, bro, building the churches.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you see like just it's knowing, like, because I experienced it. I think like also like I experienced it a lot in my father's ministry, you know, going to Mexico, going to the deep, to like where you literally go 50 years back, and it's like, you know, candles, you know, and sheep
Yeah.
and milk and cheese and eggs. That's what you're eating, you know. And like experiencing like that, where their offering was two sheep. That was our offering.
Yeah.
And we literally, like, check this funny story. We were driving back down after 40 days of revival, like going from city to city to like different areas preaching. And I was young, 40 days nonstop, talking about back to back. Imagine going to church, having church 40 days straight nonstop. That's crazy, you know. Like, it's just insane, you know. It can get to you, you know, be like, it was a long time. Anyways, that last place we stopped, they gave us, you know, their offering was, you know, two little sheep. So the whole way, like, we were so annoyed. We're like, man, Like the whole way they were just crying, bro. Like,
Keep your sheep.
yeah, we're like, you know what? As soon as we get to the border, like they're gonna say, like, you guys can't cross this. Well, when we get to the border, bro, like they shut up. They were silent, bro.
No.
They were like completely silent. We're like, hey, what happened to all that?
That's awesome.
So we crossed them, and then like 2 days later, my grandpa killed him, and we made some cabritas. So true story, guys. So I just thought I would lighten up the vibe there a little bit, you know, but
Didn't expect it to end that way.
okay. But anyways, going back, culture, like it's different. Like I understand now, like, hey man, I gotta accept. I gotta be accept and also respect. You know, respect. Like respecting each other. Okay. Maybe we don't agree. Or maybe we don't think the same because you were brought up different. He was brought up different. But we have to find that middle,
Right?
And we still gotta love each other. We still gotta understand each other. You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like your mother-in-law, bro.
Oh, my mother-in-law's great.
All right.
No, she's fantastic. I love her.
Okay.
Yeah, she's my second mom.
Let's be real. For the
The
most of us,
stereotypically mother-in-laws
Right,
are
right.
pretty horrible. Mine's great,
Okay.
but yes, yeah,
and mine is great too.
Yeah,
You know, but
we got lucked out. Yeah,
right. It doesn't happen to finding that middle ground to respect.
right.
Like to understand each other and just like I told this to one of my members because she's like, well, no, it's because I come dressed this way and they criticize me because I'm dressed this way. And I said, well, I mean, in reality, are you going to the club or where are you going to? Like, where are you coming? Like, let's be real. Like, I said, how would you dress if you were in the presence of a king? How would you dress if you're going to, you know?
Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes because now he's giving you a different insight.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
Of directly, because you're kind of against the attire
Yeah.
specifically.
Right. So, I
No,
mean,
and I have a response. So it's just like, this is interesting. Let's just go ahead, keep going.
so how would you go, you know, if you're going to honor something, if you're going to if you respect something, you know, because my grandma, bro, my grandma's old school, wears veil, you know, straight up, you know, and that's what she knew, you know, and even to the day she died, like her fear for God was still like, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm never good enough. I'm still wicked. I'm still sinful. And me, it's like, grandma, man, you already won your ticket to heaven. Chill out. Like, you know, like, what are you stressing about? Like, you, man, there's no way on earth you're going to hell. Like, there's like, but she still lived in that fear. You know, she still lived in that. You know, but that was just her respect, her fear to God.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean she was wrong? Like, we're going to honor her, or you're going to respect her.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's finding that middle ground. Like I knew, like, grandma, like I know, like, you're not gonna go, but that's literally how she felt. Like, that's literally. So I told, like, even the upcoming, I said, respect them because regardless, they paved the way for you to be here in their own way. You know, in their own way of how they knew education, whether it was education, knowledge, whatever. That's the best way they were able to do it.
Sure.
Kind of what we talked about, you know, in the old school.
Yeah.
Because that's what they knew in the culture. That's what they saw.
Right.
That's what they knew. Nowhere near did they have the understanding that we have now.
Right.
Bro, we have knowledge now.
Yeah.
And bro, anybody that's waking up, that's being born now, like my little girl, like she's what, 3 years old, obviously Ellie, KK and Penelope, like, bro, like, they're super smart, man. Like, they're gonna grow up like, hey, I'm not gonna be able to tell them, hey, do this, do that. They're gonna be like, why, Dad? Why? Well, I want to know, and I want to understand why.
Yeah.
So that's where also, like I have to know that, hey, bro, these are the generations that I'm gonna have to be preaching to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's no longer like what Daddy says, what Grandma said. It's like no, like I want to know the truth. Like I want to figure it out. Like why, you know, why is God real?
Yeah.
Why does he live? Like why do we have to do this? Why do they dress like that? Why? Like everything we have to explain, and they're gonna figure it out.
Right.
They're gonna want to know the answer.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I know. And so I guess my response to all of that is that's a very, very, very good point on just upcoming generations, that there's going to be everybody, I think, following us and generations after us are going to be why people.
Curious.
Exactly. And are going to want to know, you know, well, then why do I have to go to church this way? You know, if, you know, and I think that having the response of like, how would you go to present yourself against the king? You know, how, you know, who's going to be your Lord and Savior? How would you want to present yourself?
Yeah.
That's a very good response. But the reason that I have to say that I am against that particular statement itself is because it shouldn't matter. Right. You're going against...
Well, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not something that's going to take you to hell or it's going to condemn
Which
you.
is why I disagree with the attire of just showing up to church. Because what started to turn my mind, and there's a video Jefferson Bethke did. It's a whole... what would you say? It is like a...
So remember, I said a little bit about relationship and understanding how we were specifically designed. So that's something very important. So just to kind of open that, so you can be a little bit more open to that subject, is if you understand how God created you, you know, it's just how are we made? Spirit, mind, and right body, right? Like flesh, right? Your body, you have a soul, you have your spirit, you know, your mind, you know. How do we know that when we die, where we're going, or what? How do we know that we're going to have conscience, or you know, things like that? Exploring that, understanding how we were created. Why did God make us this certain way? You know, obviously we're mortal, right? You know, we're gonna die, and then you know we're gonna. If you believe in Christianity, or I don't know whose beliefs, you know, depending on what you believe, but like understanding how you were created will allow you to know that, hey, you know, it's God wants to build a relationship here on earth. He designed us to have a relationship with him since the beginning. Now, if you understand that, the beginning, what happened? The fallen man, like Adam and Eve, boom. What happened? Sin came, right? Okay, so sin comes, it takes us away. So now God says, okay, well, I have to make a way now. I have to make a way. And how does he come? Uses a man. You know, he comes through the seed of Mary, through the Holy Spirit comes, we know Jesus, right? Our Lord and Savior. Okay. So it's understanding the design. God designed us to have relationship. God designed us to congregate. Like God designed us to hug each other. He designed us to have this type of, like,
I mean, to mate too, right?
Right. Like it's how we're designed. Like if you're seeing right now, what you're seeing is what we're seeing now is that the world is trying to separate
the division,
the design.
The division, yeah.
Right. Obviously with what we're seeing now, you know, when that's obviously this opens up a lot of subjects, you know, like
different genders, homosexuality, all that.
Exactly.
We're not going to get into that today. Maybe
maybe
another
in the future
topic.
that'd be something to go into.
Sure.
But you know, that's exactly what, you know, what it is. It's so if you begin to understand that,
it's an identity crisis,
right? Even what we're going through right now with COVID, like pandemic, like immune system, like God created it. God created our immune system to work. Like it was created for contact, not for separation.
Sure.
What happens when you're isolated? How do they treat people when they're in imprisonment, when they were going to torture, when they're going to get stuff out of it? They isolate them.
Yeah.
It's separation from God, like from, you know, relationship, from contact. It affects you.
For sure.
That's why people have stories like when you went through when your mommy and daddy got divorced, when, you know, things like that. Why were you impacted? Well, because that's God designed us a certain way.
If you look at the stats, I mean, depression and anxiety skyrocketed when this whole
exactly
pandemic
what happened, like Xanax, boom, like drugs went up because of that. Until now, like it's still peaking. Like,
for sure. So, Justin, if you were to have a church, if you were a pastor, because I want to get,
I know you're not gonna be. I know you don't want to be a pastor.
No, actually, I went to Bible college, got a degree in Bible leadership.
if you had a church of your own, what would be the set of rules, or would you not have any rules at all?
So, like that's it. Like I would have. To me, that would be like if you want to ask me specific, like would I have this particular rule or this particular? Generally speaking, as far as attire goes, no, I would not. Like if someone, like I said from the example before, if I've never known Christ or I was a newcomer to Christ and still didn't know what church looked like, or what the relationship between Christ looked like, and I had a really messed up night, and I was like, you know what, I really need to come to Christ. I can't, necessarily go home and change because I stayed up all night. Let me just show up. That person that walks in through the door that has hardly anything on, to me, should still be allowed to come over. And I would want to create the environment where there's no judgment. This is like in a utopia church. There's no judgment upon that person, because if you go into church today and you show up, and at least there's some churches up north that I know they don't really do this because it's just the vibe and the environment that they create. Yeah. But like if you walked into a church here in the valley and you were in flip-flops and some shorts and a baggy t-shirt, I guarantee you more than half of those people, or at least half,
so your problem's not
would be like, hey, whoa, like what's your problem? Or like maybe the team of that church would be like, hey, you know what, you might need to be a little bit more presentable, or like, just to me there's too much structure. Or like if I wouldn't say that, like, I don't, just when it comes to like the Bible, there's some places where pastors and the team of a church preaches like, well, you have to wear X, Y, and Z because it glorifies God. And that's great that if, but at the end of the day, it's supposed to be, like I was saying earlier, Jefferson Bethke said it's not a museum for good people, it's a hospital for the broken. So what are you expecting broken people to come in and look like? Not everyone can come in tux.
Well, how do you expect those broken people not to judge you? Because we're not, okay, the people in the church are not perfect. Right? So you're not worried about being kicked out of the church so much by the pastor. You're upset that the people in that church, the culture of the church you're gonna automatically feel judged. Well, so you're asking for a utopia church, which is basically gonna be impossible because there's gonna be some people in there. So
that's something that I'm gonna put it. It's never gonna happen.
Yeah. No, you're perfectly right. No, you're perfectly right.
It's never gonna happen.
So then let me go more into detail about my answer. It's never gonna happen. I totally get it, but I think that what I'm saying is, including the church and team of a church, of all churches Christianity wide, need to stop getting into the mindset of you need to do this, this, and this. Because you know what? It can happen if we get into the mindset that every single person here is broken. Because if we get into that mindset that, hey, everyone's broken. Because if we go into that mentality, honestly, brother, it can happen.
Right.
And yes, we're all people, and we're going to probably, there's judgment's going to happen.
I honestly think even if I were to train my people, even if I were to drill my people, like, hey, like you cannot, that will not change a person even having that perception. When I met people thought I was stuck up. They don't even know my story.
Well, are you? No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. What vibe did you get when you saw me getting out of the van? Like, I don't know. Like, it ain't until you hear my story, it ain't until you go through that relationship
that you see the true humility.
That you, okay, like, you know what, I had it all wrong.
Yeah, sure.
So you cannot judge a book by its cover.
Right.
So, and I see it so many times because I've had personal people, members of mine, tell me, I thought you were this way, Pastor. I thought I could never have this conversation with you. And I said, man, like, I'm as real as it gets. Yeah. But you have to also be open to that. If you're already going with the mindset or the eyes of, oh, it's because the church is judging me. It's kind of like that person that's addicted to crack. And it's like, you're telling them what to do.
Or just any drug in general.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
General. You're addicted to sugar. Come on, we got it.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, with all due respect, my mother, she's diabetic. She has a lot of faith, But I tell her, if you don't change your eating habits, like, don't matter how much faith you have.
And see,
like,
to me, that's different. To me, judgment versus accountability are two completely different things. So if you're in fellowship with someone who is already a follower in Christ,
so why would Jesus accept Judas to be one of his disciples?
why would Jesus accept Judas to be one of his disciples, despite the fact that he already knew what was going to happen?
Right.
Because he's supposed to, not supposed to, I guess I shouldn't say, is because he's the son of God. The idea of God sending down his one and only son is to be able to accept everybody, no matter what their background is and what they're gonna turn out to be. Christ loves all.
So we need that in the church, bro.
Right.
You need that negative vibe. Yeah. We're always gonna need what's in Spanish is la hierba mala. You know that the how do you say it in English? The wheat and the tare.
Okay. Okay, so let's check it out. Because
we're gonna talk for like
I know,
man,
that's why I'm trying to get direct. That's why I'm trying to get direct so we can wrap it up. It's already gonna be an hour and 30 minutes.
All right, let's make it 4.
So
we're gonna have to do another one, another podcast,
part 2, right?
Part 2.
So to Pastor's point, because he was gonna say if you were to ask him if you were to kick some people out, because there has been some people, even when I started going to church, I have invited people and they've come like not in the attire for, I think, any church. Like you would say, like, are you going to a club, right? And Pastor never told them anything. I don't feel like they were being judged. They're friends of mine, and I try to make them feel welcome. So I think that for newcomers, it is sure, like, come however you want to be dressed, but do realize that you are entering a culture. Like, you can't come in here and try to shift the culture of that church.
Right.
Now it comes into identity crisis of like, Pastor, do you think?
Right. It's I'm sorry.
No.
Real quick. It's like if I was pastoring in Africa, if I was pastoring in the Philippines, like Philippines, bro, is hot, bro. Like literally, bro, you like the culture over there is shorts, straight up shorts.
Yeah.
Shorts. You baptize in shorts. Like, you go to church in shorts.
Does anyone else baptize in like pants?
Like,
I thought. I mean,
well, no. Like, I'm just saying, like, that's the normal. Even in the Philippines, like, that's the normal.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, when you're over there, it's like that's common. Like, it's you ain't disrespecting a temple.
Yeah.
And aside from that, because my brother went to Thailand and he told me, like, over there, Thailand is like crazy. Like, their temples, their little altars are like in each home are like legit. So it's culture, bro. It's,
I guess, to answer your question, at the end of the day, if I was head of a church, to me, the common culture, so to speak, of a church should be all are welcome no matter what. I don't care about. Yeah, and we've used the tire as an example.
No, see, but I think,
because that's a big one.
I think humility comes from both sides. What I'm saying, I'm not saying that person has to dress like them, but understand that if you're willing to step into a church that has a different culture, you have to understand that there is going to be a little bit of judgment because you are stepping into their safe place.
Sure,
you have to be okay with it. So if you can't be overly sensitive either, like, oh well, like I'm getting judged. Like, understand you're stepping into a culture.
Sure.
And it can be an identity crisis to where like you're gonna be jumping from church to church. Like, understand that is,
and you have to be culturally aware.
100%.
I'm just saying, to answer your question, going back to like what I would do, to me, common culture should be Jesus loves all, period.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. I don't want to create a culture of like, and again, we use the tire a lot throughout this video, but like there are many other things that the church or just specific religions and I'm not going to name any, but like a lot of religions like to list some rules on how to get to heaven, and there shouldn't be just Jesus. The idea of Jesus should be very simple. And it should be just, if you come to know me, accept me as your Lord and Savior, and actually try to follow my footsteps, heart intentionally with it full in. I don't care if you wear sandals and shorts to church. Yeah. If your heart is in the right place, go for it. That's all I'm trying to say. That would be the common culture that I would try to set.
I agree with you to a certain point, but here's where I think the separation does take place.
Okay, you're wrong. What?
Just kidding. If you are going to be a member of the church, perfectly fine. Now, if you're going to be a leader, that's different.
How so?
Because if you're going to be a member of the church, I understand that you can come to church however you want.
Mm-hmm.
But by becoming a leader, you are deciding, you are making a decision to buy into that culture.
You can use the testimony that Jesus uses broken people to lead, though. So you can use that. If you wanted, as a pastor, wanted to show up and like, hey, I'm in flip-flops, I'm in shorts, I'm in a t-shirt, I'm just like you, and God is using me. Which is why I'm saying, like, Jesus didn't go to a guy and be like, hey, you know what? Dress up for the occasion. Because I guarantee you, Paul did not dress up in a suit.
But you are now undermining the pastor, though. You have to buy into the pastor's vision. You know what I mean? You cannot try to overstep the pastor.
I thought the question
either.
was if you became a pastor to lead the church.
Oh, no. If you became leadership under the pastor. Okay. If you become a part of the praise team, if you become, now the standard changes. If you want to be if you want to be a member of the church and you want to dress whatever you want, this is me. Like, I'm not saying that pastor, this should be, but this is me. Sure, whatever you want to wear, okay. But if you do want to have a leadership role in my church, these are the standards. And if you don't want to, perfectly fine. You're welcome to come every single service and wear whatever you want.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, if I'm going to be going under leadership where, again, attire, it sounds silly. So like if I got a job where I felt like I was going to be able to influence people through Jesus Christ, but I had to wear jeans every Sunday, okay, I don't have a problem with that. But at the end of the day, if I go into a church where it feels man-held instead of God-held, is what I'm saying.
So you answered your own question. You nailed it right there, bro. So if I go to a church that feels, that's gonna, bro, to anybody, bro, that's gonna determine, bro. It's your relationship with how you're gonna connect to whatever leadership, to whatever pastor, to whatever vision. It's really how you feel. Yeah. Really, because the experience is gonna be different, bro.
Right.
We've all had negative experiences at a church.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
We've all had negative. Things happen in a church, even leadership. I saw it growing up. I went through things. Yeah. If we dive a little bit deeper, like my wife's brother, he got molested, by a man from the church, a musician from the church. So like if we dive deep, like it can go. Yeah. But it's really, how do we lead them to somebody having a negative experience? Whether it was for like how you dress or what you went through, experience in church.
So I just, at the end of the day, I guess what I'm just going to leave off of this statement, and I'll have my inputs here and there. But like right now, as far as like your questions and like my input to you, I think the church will see and realize how many more Christ followers that Jesus can grab onto when the church realizes that Jesus is not so just a list of things and just it's so simple. It's so simple to come to Christ.
So this is my challenge to you.
All right, let's do it.
So you feel that in your heart.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's God speaking into your heart?
1,000,000%.
Then do it.
Yeah, I do.
Like build a church and then do it.
Build it. Well,
polarize that.
Yeah, sure.
If you believe that, because I'm not against you right here. I'm saying if you believe this is God, right? Yeah. Ask for his guidance and do it. And show it to people that way, not trying to go to other people's churches and change their culture. Build your own culture.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. It's kind of like, and I'll show, like my brother, amazing preacher, amazing preacher. God has given him that gift. Went through divorce. Went through that process of also being a PK, of also at one point being a co-pastor, and then having his marriage crumble. And going through that process of divorce, and then still to the day, 'cause I have those conversations with him. Now I'm a pastor, and I have to also, we have these type of discussions,
Sure.
And it's like, and I tell him the same thing I told, kind of like Roger said, is like, hey bro, like God has not taken away your gift.
Yeah.
I said, and don't try. I said, if you really want to continue, don't try going somewhere to change. I say you're on all your liberty to have your own platform.
Yeah.
And do it. Like if you really feel it, like you're still gonna impact people.
Yeah.
You're still gonna do it. But like obviously you're not gonna be able to do what you want to do somewhere else. It's gonna be hard.
Right.
And because we're not all, kind of like going back to my question, like how that's my task now. That's my challenge that I have to do to now in my local church, because it was brought up a certain way, tradition, upbringing, all that good stuff. Now, how am I going to this new generation that has totally different mindset, totally different? Now, how are we gonna bring it together? That's where we're at.
And I think we're in the best position to do that because we are allowed as individuals now with social media being so crazy to build our own platform. I mean, look at that. What's his name? The one with that video?
Jefferson Bethke.
Bro, how many people I've heard so many people mention that video, and he's altered so many people's mindset, but he's did that over YouTube.
Right.
So like, you know what I mean? He's cultivated that through a platform of his. So it's very possible. So I believe in creating your own culture, which we are going to create our own culture within the show, right? We're going to have disagreements, but we are going to,
you're wrong all the time.
And I'm the pastor, so I'm definitely wrong.
Yeah, you're the black sheep.
Black sheep. That's your new name.
All right, guys, we're going to have to be wrapping it up soon. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you called me out earlier about the whole just act on it, I'm the only reason I'm going to bring this back up is because I'm so passionate about it.
For sure.
So with the church thing and trying to reach out to people is whether or not you have the mindset that the church needs to change, you can go in and still have fellowship if whether or not you disagree with the church. The point of Jesus being simplistic, if you feel like there's a calling to God that Jesus is supposed to be simple and you want to change the idea of what Christianity should be, then something as simple as working at a register and being like, hey, you're having a bad day. I just want you to know that I love you, man. I don't know you, but I love you. Something as simple as that. Versus instead of someone walking in and a perfect Christian, so to speak, is wow, you're being rude. A first reaction should be, hey, it's gonna be okay. Just something as simple as that, and then throwing out faith flags and things just things that I've been taught through college and through going to church, that you don't have to just for example, God willing, one day I'm a missionary, but there's things that I can do up until then to be able to fulfill that calling. And missionary doesn't always mean going. Maybe I can pray for the missionaries that are right now overseas and things like that. So I think that going back to what your comment was and what I think should be happening in the church right now is a very simplistic mindset, is that all are welcome. And we need to get rid of just the whole, now accountability, sure. Judgment, we need to figure out. And I get people are human and it's gonna happen. You're gonna come in one day in booty shorts and I'm gonna be instead of Jesus hates you, I'm gonna be bro, those do not look good on you. You know what I'm saying? That's the way
right.
But
okay, so I agree with you at some points, right? But I think you're just obsessed. I think you're obsessed, and I think for your sake, it's gonna harm you that you're obsessed with changing people.
I would
you're obsessed with your beliefs should be their beliefs, and I think that you will have some effect to some people, but some people are just not going to agree with you, and that's going to be exhausting for you, for your sake. Instead of let's look in the mirror,
because the subject itself is exhausting you.
Oh yeah, bro.
Yeah. Well, I guess. Okay. Well, I feel like I'm giving maybe the wrong message. I'm trying to say that Jesus should just be simple. The gospel is written. It should be very simple on how to come to Christ as long as your heart is following it. And it is very simple. Just you read it and it says, just follow me, follow in my footsteps, be an example of me.
The problem
to me,
is
that should be
that, what I think what Roger's trying to say is that not everybody is gonna feel the same way or even think about not everybody's gonna say the gospel's simple.
Yeah, because not everybody is as smart as you, Justin.
Well, thank you.
You know what I mean?
I'm sensing sarcasm.
No.
He's yeah, that's what it was.
No, for real. I mean, Pastor and I have talked about this a bunch of times about having to dumb down some content in order to. But even the greatest entrepreneurs do it. If they're gonna go speak in a hood, they're going to have to speak that language. Sure, if they're going to speak to very intelligent people, they're going to have to speak
so communication.
So not everybody thinks it's that simple as you think it is. And that's why I think anything y'all want to say before we wrap this up.
You guys are wrong. No. No, okay. Real quick. Culturally aware, very important. And when I was talking generally, I was talking about here in the U.S. because I think the U.S. can have a better understanding. Just not better understanding, I should say, but like I think that without having you can't go to, the Middle East and be like, oh yeah, just show up in shorts and a t-shirt. Like I totally get, like you have to be culturally aware that that's not okay if you want to come to Christ. However, here I think just in the church, with being culturally sensitive and culturally aware, I still think that there can be a church or just the Christianity, instead of having like, well, you need to do this or you need to do that, can shift in some way, shape, or form to a mindset of
like no judgment.
All are welcome. All are welcome.
Judgment.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, that would.
I think that's impossible.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think you're gonna tire yourself out.
Hey, you know what? For the good of God, right?
For the good of the gospel.
For the good of the gospel. For the good of Jesus Christ.
All right, guys. We'll kind of wrap it up. Listen, we can go on for probably another 3 hours. We're gonna have to wrap it up here. I don't want to prolong it any more than what it already is. It's a lot longer than what we expected. If y'all want a part 2, make sure you leave it down in the comment section. Make sure y'all are sharing the video. Yeah. This is a great one.
Share, and say you want a part 2 because we
need to run this back.
Yeah, we really do need another one. So
and we might need a step pastor over here just in case him and Justin start to.
Hey, we're the best of friends.
Hey, yeah,
and I love this guy right here.
Yeah, made a new friend.
I love this guy.
Yeah,
right, man.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you, and until next time, we're out. Peace.
On the track.